Please, do not leave me here. Emily Carter stopped so suddenly that snow slid from the hood of her cloak. For one breath, she wondered if the storm had shaped the words from the wind. Then the voice came again, smaller this time. Please. Emily turned toward the pine trees. The eastern trail had nearly vanished beneath 6 inches of fresh snow, and Silver Creek was still more than a mile behind her. Every sensible instinct told her to keep moving. The temperature was falling, darkness was coming, and nobody knew she had taken this route home. But somewhere beyond the trees, a child was alone. Emily stepped off the trail. Snow reached above her boots as she followed the faint sound between the pines. I can't hear you, she called. Keep talking to me. No answer came. Her heartbeat quickened. She pushed past a snow-heavy branch and finally saw a small shape beneath a cedar tree. A little boy, perhaps 4 years old, sat curled against the trunk with his knees drawn close. His dark coat was expensive, but snow covered his shoulders, and his small hands trembled inside wet gloves. Emily immediately crouched several feet away so she would not frighten him. Hey, she said softly. My name is Emily. I am going to help you. The boy lifted frightened gray eyes toward her. Daddy, we will find him. Emily did not know how she could promise that, but she knew what it felt like to believe nobody was coming. She removed her cloak and wrapped it carefully around his shoulders. The cold struck through her sweater almost instantly. Can you tell me your name? His lips moved. Noah. Okay, Noah. You are not staying out here. Emily helped him stand, but his legs were unsteady. Without hesitation, she lifted him into her arms. He was lighter than she expected. Too light, somehow. She turned towards Silver Creek, calculating the distance, when something silver flashed beneath the edge of his coat. Emily paused. A polished clasp was fastened near his collar, engraved with a wolf beneath a small crown. Her breath caught. She had seen that symbol only once, stamped into a royal announcement delivered to Silver Creek 3 weeks earlier. The crowned wolf belonged to the House of Cain, to the Alpha King. Emily looked down at the child in her arms. Noah's eyes were already drifting closed. Stay with me, she whispered. His fingers tightened weakly around her sweater. Somewhere beyond the storm, a low horn echoed through the mountains. Then another answered from farther north. Search horns. Emily stared through the falling snow as an impossible thought settled over her. Whoever this child was, powerful people were looking for him. But Noah did not need power right now. He needed warmth. Emily pulled him closer and started toward the old watchtower, the nearest shelter she knew. Behind them, the storm erased their footprints almost as quickly as she made them. Emily had gone less than a quarter mile when voices broke through the storm. Someone is on the trail. A lantern appeared between the trees, followed by 2 more. Relief rose in her chest until she recognized Vanessa Cole at the front of the Silver Creek Patrol. Vanessa stopped when the light reached Emily, then stared at the small figure wrapped in her cloak. What are you doing out here? I found him near the eastern trail, Emily said. Noah shifted weakly against her shoulder. He needs warmth. The old watchtower is close. Vanessa stepped nearer, her expression sharpening when she noticed the silver clasp at Noah's collar. Where did he get that? He was wearing it when I found him. One of the patrolmen glanced toward Vanessa. That is a royal crest. The words seemed to change the air between them. Vanessa's eyes moved from the crowned wolf to Emily. Suspicion replaced surprise. A royal child does not simply appear in the forest with the weakest omega in Silver Creek. Emily felt the old insult land exactly where it always did, but Noah's trembling mattered more. Then ask questions after he is warm. Vanessa frowned. Richard needs to see this first. Silver Creek is more than a mile away. Emily looked toward the ridge. Through the trees, she could barely make out the dark outline of the watchtower, less than half a mile ahead. The tower has a stove and dry wood. You do not make that decision. Emily had heard those words in different forms her entire life. You do not decide. You do not lead. You cannot shift, so you cannot know. She looked down at Noah. His fingers were still curled into her sweater. Emily, he whispered. Something inside her became very still. She lifted her eyes to Vanessa. I am making it now. Silence followed. Even the patrolman seemed surprised. Vanessa took a slow breath. If that child truly belongs to the royal family, you have no idea what you are involving us in. He is 4 years old, Emily replied. Right now, that is the only thing that matters. Another search horn sounded somewhere beyond the northern ridge, closer than before. Noah stirred at the sound, but did not wake fully. Emily adjusted the cloak around him and started toward the watchtower. For several seconds, nobody followed. Then one patrolman moved after her. Vanessa called his name sharply, but he kept walking. "She is right about the shelter," he said. Vanessa remained behind for another moment before reluctantly following. The tower emerged through the snow like a dark shadow, its narrow windows covered with frost. Emily reached the wooden door first and pushed it open. Cold darkness waited inside, but the old iron stove still stood against the far wall. She carried Noah toward it while the others searched for matches and dry wood. As Emily lowered him carefully onto a bench, Noah opened his eyes. He stared at her as though trying to remember something from a dream. Then his small hand reached for hers. "Guardian," he whispered. Emily froze. Vanessa turned from the stove. "What did he call you?" Emily barely heard her. No one had ever called her that before. Yet Noah was looking at her with complete certainty. "Who taught you that word?" Emily asked softly. The boy shook his head. "Nobody." His fingers tightened around hers. "I just know." The word stayed between them long after Noah closed his eyes again. "Guardian." Emily sat beside him on the narrow wooden bench while the iron stove slowly warmed the watchtower. The patrolman who had followed her, Daniel Brooks, fed another piece of dry wood into the fire, while Vanessa stood near the frosted window with her arms folded tightly. "Children say strange things when they are frightened," Vanessa finally said. Emily looked at Noah. His breathing had become steadier, but his hand still rested inside hers as though letting go might make her disappear. "Maybe," Emily answered. She wanted to believe that explanation. It was easier than wondering why a child she had never met had looked at her, as if he recognized something she did not recognize in herself. Daniel crossed the room and placed a folded blanket beside her. "The storm is getting worse. We should stay here until visibility improves." Vanessa glanced toward the door. "Richard will expect us back." "Richard would rather have us late than lost," Daniel replied. Emily wrapped the second blanket around Noah and checked the silver clasp again. The crowned wolf seemed almost brighter in the firelight. "Noah," she whispered when his eyes opened slightly. "Do you know where your father is?" The boy looked toward the window. "He was with me before the snow." "Were you traveling?" Noah nodded. Cars stopped. His voice was faint but clearer than before. "People were talking. I heard something." Emily leaned closer. "What did you hear?" Noah frowned as if reaching for a memory. "Not heard." He touched his chest. "Felt." Vanessa gave a quiet sigh of impatience, but Emily ignored her. "What did you feel?" Noah looked directly at Emily. "Warm." The answer made no sense. Emily had been nowhere near a royal convoy. Until an hour ago, she had been carrying supplies along the Eastern Trail, trying to finish another task nobody else wanted. "Then I walked," Noah continued. "I thought somebody was calling me." Emily's stomach tightened. "How far?" He shook his head. "I do not know." Daniel moved closer to the window. "There is an old service road north of here. A convoy could have stopped there before the storm covered it." That explained how Noah might have reached this section of forest, but not why he had left safety. Emily looked at him again. "Was the warm feeling still there when you found me?" Noah nodded. "It was you." Vanessa turned sharply. "That is impossible." Emily almost agreed. She had no special gift. She could not even complete a shift, the failure Silver Creek had used to define her since adolescence. Yet Noah seemed completely certain. Outside, another search horn sounded through the storm, much closer now. Noah suddenly sat upright. "Daddy." Emily squeezed his hand. "He is looking for you." The boy's face tightened with worry. "I cannot feel him anymore." Emily did not understand what he meant, but she understood fear. She moved closer and covered his small hand with both of hers. "Then remember him," she said gently. "Remember the safest moment you have with him. Hold on to that." Noah closed his eyes. Emily did the same. For several seconds, there was only the crackling stove and the wind against the walls. Then warmth touched her palms. Emily opened her eyes. A faint silver light was glowing beneath her fingers. The silver light grew brighter, but it carried no heat that could burn and no force that frightened Noah. It felt like warmth remembered rather than warmth created, something quiet and familiar moving through Emily's hands. She pulled back instinctively. The glow faded. Noah made a small sound of distress. "Do not stop." Emily stared at her palms. "I do not know what I am doing." "You were helping me." His simple certainty struck deeper than Vanessa's disbelief. Emily slowly placed her hands around Noah's again. All right, close your eyes. Think about your father. Noah obeyed. Emily focused only on keeping him calm. The silver light returned, first beneath her fingertips, then in delicate threads that curled around their joined hands. Daniel stepped away from the stove, speechless. Vanessa moved closer despite herself. Emily, what is that? I do not know. For once, those words did not make Emily feel inadequate. Something was happening, and whatever it was, Noah's breathing became easier as the panic left his face. Tell me about your father, Emily whispered. Noah smiled faintly. He makes pancakes badly. Daniel almost laughed. Emily did. That sounds serious. He burns the edges. Then remember that. Remember breakfast. Remember his voice. Noah's smile strengthened. The light pulsed once. Suddenly the watchtower disappeared. Emily could still feel the wooden floor beneath her boots. Yet another place opened inside her mind. A large room. Tall windows. Maps scattered across a table. Men and women moving urgently beneath warm lights. Then she saw him. A tall man in a black coat stood perfectly still at the center of the room. Dark hair. Strong features. Silver eyes. His expression carried the exhausted control of someone refusing to surrender to fear. Emily had never seen him before, but every instinct told her exactly who he was. Alexander Kane, the Alpha King. His head lifted sharply. Those silver eyes found hers across a distance that should have made such a thing impossible. Emily forgot to breathe. Surprise crossed his face, followed by something deeper, something she could not name. Who are you? His voice seemed to reach her without sound. Emily tried to answer, but the vision shifted. Noah's fingers tightened around hers. The connection between father and son appeared to Emily as a thin silver thread stretching through darkness. It had been faint. Now it brightened. Alexander turned as though hearing something far away. Noah. This time Emily heard the word clearly. The vision vanished. She found herself back inside the watchtower, breathing hard, Noah still holding her hands. Daniel was staring at her. Vanessa had gone completely pale. Your eyes, Daniel whispered. They turned silver. Emily looked down. The glow around her fingers was already fading. Noah suddenly opened his eyes, and for the first time since she found him, relief filled his face. He felt me. Emily's heart stumbled. Your father? Noah nodded. Far beyond the watchtower, through miles of forest and falling snow, a long royal search horn sounded once. Then twice. Then a third time. Vanessa moved toward the window. Those are not search calls anymore. Daniel looked at her. What are they? Vanessa watched distant lights begin moving through the storm. They found what they were looking for. 30 miles north of Frost Hollow, Alexander Kane felt his son return to him, like a light switching on in a dark room. He stopped beside the long strategy table so abruptly that every advisor around him fell silent. For hours, the bond he had shared with Noah since the boy's birth had been almost impossible to sense, buried beneath distance, fear, and the strange interference of the storm. Now it was there again, faint, but unmistakable. Noah, Alexander whispered. His silver eyes closed as he concentrated. He expected fear. Instead, he felt warmth, safety, and someone else. A presence he did not recognize rested beside his son's bond, gentle but strangely powerful, as though an unseen hand had found a fraying thread and carefully tied it together again. Then an image flashed through his mind. An old wooden watchtower, a small iron stove, Noah wrapped in blankets, and a young woman kneeling beside him with silver light surrounding her hands. Alexander opened his eyes. I saw him. The royal advisor nearest him stepped forward. Your Majesty, my son is alive. Relief moved through the room, but Alexander was already looking at the regional map. He placed one finger over Frost Hollow. He is somewhere south of the service road. The storm has closed most of the mountain routes, an officer said. Then use the routes that remain open. Alexander's voice was controlled, not raised, yet everyone moved immediately. He reached for his black winter coat. The strange presence returned for half a second. The woman. He could not see her clearly now, but he remembered her eyes. There had been fear in them, yet she had stayed beside Noah. His wolf had reacted to her in a way Alexander had not felt in years, a quiet recognition so unexpected that he refused to name it. This was about his son, nothing else. Who is she, he asked. No one answered. They had not seen what he had seen. Within minutes, The royal vehicles were moving south through the storm, guided by the restored bond. Meanwhile, inside the watchtower, Emily watched distant lights appear between the trees. Noah sat closer to the stove, color slowly returning to his face. Daniel checked the trail through the window, while Vanessa remained unusually quiet. "They are coming this way," Daniel said. Emily looked down at her hands. The silver glow was gone, but a faint warmth remained beneath her skin. She still could not understand what had happened. Noah could. He reached for her hand again. "Daddy is coming." Emily smiled. Good. She should have felt only relief. Instead, she remembered the silver-eyed man who had somehow looked directly at her from 30 miles away. The connection had lasted only seconds, but something about it remained inside her like an unanswered question. Vanessa stepped beside her. "When we return to Silver Creek, Richard will want an explanation." Emily looked at Noah. "So will I." Outside, the approaching lights multiplied until they stretched between the trees like a river of gold. Then Noah suddenly turned toward the door before anyone else heard the distant engines. His face brightened. "That is him." Emily rose slowly. Somewhere beyond the storm, the Alpha King was coming for his son. And somehow, impossibly, Emily already knew what his eyes looked like. By the time Emily reached Silver Creek with Noah, the storm had softened enough for the settlement lights to glow clearly through the trees. Daniel walked beside them, while Vanessa hurried ahead to alert Richard Hayes. Emily carried Noah beneath her cloak, expecting exhaustion to make every step harder, yet the strange warmth beneath her palms had never completely disappeared. The moment they entered the courtyard, the great hall doors opened. Richard emerged first, followed by several pack members. "Emily, what happened?" Before she could answer, headlights swept across the snow behind them. One vehicle became 3, then 6, moving slowly through the storm until black royal cars surrounded the courtyard. The crown wolf crest gleamed on every door. Conversation died instantly. Emily felt Noah move in her arms. "Daddy." The first vehicle stopped. Alexander Kane stepped out before anyone could open the door for him. He wore a black winter coat dusted with snow, and even from across the courtyard Emily recognized those silver eyes. The same eyes she had seen through an impossible connection inside the watchtower. Alexander saw Noah. For one suspended second, the Alpha King disappeared beneath the expression of a frightened father finally seeing his child alive. "Noah." Emily lowered the boy carefully. Noah ran across the snow as fast as his tired legs allowed. Alexander dropped to one knee and caught him, holding him close while the entire courtyard remained silent. Emily turned her face away, suddenly feeling as though she had entered a private moment. "I knew you would find me," Noah whispered. Alexander closed his eyes briefly. "I will always look for you." A royal physician approached and gently examined Noah while Alexander remained beside him. After several minutes, the physician looked relieved. "He is cold and exhausted, Your Majesty, but stable. Whoever kept him warm reached him in time." Alexander's gaze lifted immediately to Emily. Before he could speak, Vanessa stepped forward. "Your Majesty, there are questions about how she found him." Emily felt several familiar eyes turn toward her. Richard's expression tightened. "Vanessa, I am only saying what everyone is thinking. A royal child disappears, and somehow Emily Carter finds him alone." Noah pulled away from the physician. "She saved me." His small voice silenced the courtyard more effectively than any command. He walked back to Emily and took her hand. "She gave me her coat. She stayed with me. She made the light." Alexander's attention sharpened. "What light?" Vanessa opened her mouth, but Daniel answered first. "Silver light, Your Majesty. I saw it myself." Alexander stood slowly. His eyes moved to Emily's hands, then to her face. Recognition passed between them. "It was you," he said quietly. Emily swallowed. "You saw me too." A murmur traveled through the gathered pack. Richard stared at her as if seeing someone unfamiliar. Alexander crossed the remaining distance but stopped several feet away, giving her space. "My son was beyond my reach," he said. Then something restored our bond. Emily looked down at Noah's hand inside hers. "I only asked him to remember you." Noah looked up at his father. "She is the guardian." Alexander went completely still. Behind him, an elderly royal advisor lifted his head sharply. "What did the child say?" Noah repeated it without hesitation. "Guardian." The advisor stared at Emily, and the color slowly left his face. "Your Majesty," he whispered, That title has not been spoken in the royal blood records for nearly a century. The courtyard became so quiet that Emily could hear snow sliding from the roof of the great hall. The elderly advisor stepped closer, studying her with an expression that made her suddenly aware of every person watching. "What is your name?" he asked. "Emily Carter." "And your family line?" Emily hesitated. "My mother was Sarah Carter. She died when I was 16. I never knew much about anyone before her." Richard shifted uneasily. "Emily has lived in Silver Creek her entire life." The advisor looked at him. "And what abilities has she demonstrated?" Richard's silence answered before he did. Vanessa folded her arms. "None. She cannot even complete a shift." The familiar words should have hurt. Instead, Alexander's expression changed. "That was not my question." Vanessa lowered her eyes. The advisor turned back to Emily. Guardian Omegas were never defined by ordinary shifting strength. The oldest records describe them as protectors of bonds. They could sense weakened connections, steady them, and sometimes restore what distance or fear had nearly silenced. Emily looked at Noah. "That does not make sense. I have never done anything like this before." "Perhaps nobody ever needed you in the right way before tonight," the advisor replied. The sentence landed softly, but it unsettled something Emily had believed about herself for years. Noah squeezed her hand. "I needed her." Alexander looked down at his son, then back at Emily. "And she came." Vanessa stepped forward again. "Your Majesty, with respect, we still do not know why Noah was near her in the first place." Emily felt the courtyard tighten around the accusation. Alexander did not raise his voice. "Then we ask for facts instead of inventing guilt." Daniel spoke from behind Emily. "I found them on the trail." She was already carrying him toward shelter. She gave him her cloak. When the weather worsened, she chose the watchtower because it was less than half a mile away. "I witnessed the silver light myself." Richard slowly nodded. "The eastern road is exposed during storms. The tower was the safer choice." Vanessa stared at him, clearly surprised that he had supported Emily. Noah tugged gently on Alexander's sleeve. "She heard me when nobody else did." Alexander crouched beside him. "What do you mean?" Noah pointed toward Emily. "Before I saw her, I felt warm. I followed it." Emily's breath caught. The advisor became very still. "A dormant guardian call," he murmured. "Possibly instinctive." Emily shook her head. "I did not call anyone." "Not consciously," he said. Alexander rose and faced the gathered members of Silver Creek. "Whatever remains unexplained will be examined carefully. But one fact is already clear." His gaze moved across the courtyard before returning to Emily. "My son was alone in a winter storm. Emily Carter found him, protected him, sheltered him, and helped restore the bond that allowed me to locate him." No one spoke. For the first time, Emily watched the people who had called her weak struggle to meet her eyes. Alexander stepped toward her, stopping at a respectful distance. "You have my gratitude." Emily managed a small nod. "I would have done it for any child." Something almost like wonder crossed his face. "I believe you." The advisor suddenly looked at Emily's wrist. Beneath her sleeve, a faint silver glow had appeared again. "Emily," he whispered, "show me your hand." She slowly raised it. A delicate crescent-shaped symbol was forming beneath her skin. Alexander stared at it. Then his own wrist began to glow. The glow on Alexander's wrist appeared slowly, as if something beneath his skin had been waiting years for permission to wake. Emily stared at it. A silver star formed beside a narrow crescent, matching the light on her own wrist so precisely that the courtyard seemed to disappear around her. "What does that mean?" she whispered. The elderly advisor did not answer immediately. His face held the stunned recognition of a man seeing history step out of an old book. Alexander looked equally shaken, but for a different reason. His eyes remained fixed on the mark. "That is impossible." Noah moved closer to his father. "Why?" Alexander lowered his sleeve, but the silver light remained visible through the fabric. "Because I had a mate once." His voice was quiet. "Your mother." Noah's expression softened. Emily felt suddenly intrusive, as though she had been placed inside a memory that did not belong to her. She stepped back. "Then this must be connected to what happened in the tower." "No," the advisor said. Emily turned toward him. "Guardian power can strengthen a bond that already exists. It can restore a weakened connection. It cannot create a mate bond." The words settled over the courtyard. Vanessa stared openly now. Richard looked from Emily to Alexander without speaking. Then explain this, Alexander said. The advisor approached carefully. The oldest records mention second bonds. They are extraordinarily rare. They appear only after a first bond has ended through loss, never rejection, and they cannot be summoned by rank, magic, or desire. Emily looked at Alexander. For the first time, she did not see the Alpha King. She saw a father who still carried love for someone who was gone. I am sorry, she said softly. Alexander met her eyes. You have nothing to apologize for. The warmth beneath Emily's skin deepened. She pulled her sleeve over the mark. I do not understand any of this. Neither do I, Alexander admitted. That surprised her more than any royal answer could have. Noah slipped his hand into hers. I understand. Emily looked down. You do? He nodded seriously. You found me. A small smile touched Alexander's face, but the advisor remained hitched. By sunrise, Silver Creek looked different to Emily, though nothing about the settlement had truly changed. Snow still covered the rooftops. Smoke still rose from stone chimneys. The same people still stood outside the great hall, but their eyes no longer passed over her, as if she were invisible. Emily realized that she had spent years believing their judgment was a mirror. Now she understood it had only been a wall. Richard approached her quietly. Emily, I owe you an apology. She studied him. For last night. His expression tightened with regret. For much longer than that. Vanessa stood several feet behind him, silent and humbled. Emily did not need either of them to rewrite the past. She only needed them to stop defining her future. Then make Silver Creek different for the next Omega everyone decides is too weak, she said. Richard nodded. I will. Near the royal vehicles, Noah waited beside Alexander, bundled beneath a fresh blue coat. When he saw Emily, his entire face brightened. Guardian. Emily laughed softly. You are going to make that name impossible to escape. Good, Noah said. Alexander smiled, but there was uncertainty behind his silver eyes. He approached Emily without the authority of a king expecting obedience. The royal archives may contain answers about your mother and the guardian line, he said. You are welcome to come with us and search them. But if you want to remain here, those records will be brought to you. Emily looked toward the mountains. Yesterday, leaving Silver Creek had felt impossible. This morning, staying simply because she was afraid felt even more impossible. If I come, she said, I come because I want answers, not because of the mark. Alexander held her gaze. Agreed. And whatever this bond becomes, I decide that for myself. Always. The answer came without hesitation. Emily looked down as the crescent on her wrist shimmered faintly beneath the morning light. For years, she had waited for someone to tell her that she mattered. Yet the moment that changed everything had happened before any king knew her name, when a frightened child had called from beneath the snow and she had chosen to answer. That choice had been hers. So was this one. Alexander extended his hand, palm open, making no attempt to close the distance himself. Emily looked at it, then at Noah, who was trying very hard not to look impatient. She smiled and placed her hand in Alexander's. The marks warmed gently. Noah immediately took her other hand. Together, they started toward the waiting vehicles as sunlight spilled across the snowy road. Emily did not know whether destiny had been waiting for her all along. She only knew that strength had never been what Silver Creek taught her it was. Sometimes strength was staying gentle when the world called gentleness weakness. Sometimes it was hearing the smallest voice in the storm and refusing to walk away. And sometimes it was accepting an open door without surrendering the right to choose where it led. If this story reminded you that kindness can change a life when no one is watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of courage, hope, and destiny.